Rich girl splashes coffee on janitor. Then the CEO hands her a pink slip and says, "She's my wife." A rich girl splashes coffee on a janitor at a prestigious tech company, unaware he's a decorated war veteran and the beloved husband of the CEO. Elegant headquarters of Horizon Innovations gleamed in the morning sun, its glass and steel structure rising like a beacon of progress against the Seattle skyline. Rain pattered softly against the windows, typical for a gray October morning in the Pacific Northwest. Inside, the polished marble floors reflected the warm lighting as employees streamed through security, clutching coffee cups and briefcases, their footsteps echoing in the vast atrium. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. In the corner of the bustling lobby, Marcus Wilson worked methodically with his mop, his weathered hands moving in slow, deliberate strokes across the rain-streaked floor. At 45, Marcus still maintained the strong, disciplined frame of his military days, though deep lines creased the corners of his eyes, and patches of gray now threaded through his once jet-black hair, cut short in the same style he'd worn for over 2 decades. His deep brown eyes carried a quiet dignity as they scanned the floor for missed spots, occasionally lifting to observe the stream of young professionals rushing past him as if he were invisible. Marcus wore his navy blue maintenance uniform with the same precision he once wore his decorated military dress. The name tag simply read Marcus Rule, offering no hint that Master Sergeant Marcus Wilson had once led special operations teams through some of the most dangerous territories in Afghanistan, earning a Silver Star for valor that now lay in a box in his modest apartment. His left leg, injured during his final deployment, caused a slight but noticeable limp that he worked hard to minimize, a physical reminder of the life he'd left behind. As the morning rush intensified, Marcus carefully placed a yellow "Caution Wet Floor" sign near the entrance where rain was being tracked in. The automatic doors whooshed open again, and a gust of cold air swept in along with the clicking of expensive heels against marble. Alexis Blackwood strode in, head high, designer handbag swinging from her arm, one hand clutching the latest iPhone, the other balancing a large cup of artisanal coffee. At 26, Alexis exuded the confidence that came from being the daughter of one of Seattle's wealthiest real estate developers. Her auburn hair fell in perfect waves around her shoulders, framing a face enhanced by expertly applied makeup, her tailored Burberry coat and Christian Louboutin heels marking her as someone who expected the world to notice her. Behind her trailed 2 similarly dressed young women, laughing loudly at something Alexis had just said. The 3 of them were marketing consultants brought in by the board to revamp Horizon's brand image, a project that had already stretched 2 months beyond its deadline with little to show except mounting expenses and glossy presentations. "I swear, if Catherine Montgomery doesn't approve the campaign today, I'm going to scream," Alexis said, her voice cutting through the ambient noise of the lobby. "She's so uptight about everything. This doesn't align with our values, Alexis. We need to emphasize accessibility." Alexis, like anyone cares about all that corporate social responsibility garbage when they're buying software. Her friends nodded in synchronized agreement as they approached the elevator bank. Marcus, seeing them headed directly for the wet section of floor despite his caution sign, spoke up. "Excuse me, ma'am, floor's still wet there. Might want to go around," he said, his voice low but clear, still carrying the authoritative tone developed over years of military command. Alexis barely glanced his way, her eyes never leaving her phone screen. "Whatever," she muttered, continuing on her path. Her heel hit a particularly slick spot, causing her to stumble slightly. Coffee sloshed over the rim of her cup, splashing onto Marcus's freshly mopped floor and spattering the lower part of his uniform. "Oh my God," she exclaimed, but not at the mess or the worker she'd soiled, at her phone. "Brittany just texted. Catherine rescheduled our meeting to 11. Ooh, That woman is impossible. One of her friends noticed Marcus wiping the coffee from his pants. "Alexis, you got coffee on the janitor," she said with a slight giggle, as if it were an amusing anecdote to be shared later. Alexis glanced at Marcus, her expression a mixture of annoyance and dismissal. "Oh, well, you should have been more careful with where you were mopping during rush hour," she said, not offering an apology. Her eyes flipped to his name tag. "Isn't cleaning up messes your job anyway, Marcus?" Her friends smirked, and one of them whispered something that made Alexis laugh as they continued toward the elevator. Marcus said nothing, just resumed mopping, now adding the spilled coffee to his tasks. His face remained impassive, though something flickered in his eyes, not anger, but a deep weariness. As if this were just one small indignity in a long line of them. From across the lobby, Diane Chun, the head of building maintenance, had witnessed the exchange. She approached Marcus, concern evident in her expression. "You okay, Marcus?" she asked quietly. Marcus nodded, wringing out his mop. "Just another day," he replied with a slight smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Diane frowned, looking toward the elevators where Alexis and her friends had disappeared. "That's Alexis Blackwood, one of the marketing consultants the board hired. She's been a nightmare for everyone." She shook her head. "Don't let her get to you. Some people just never learned basic respect." "It's fine, Diane," Marcus assured her. "I've dealt with worse than coffee stains." Diane patted his shoulder gently. "I know you have." "Still doesn't make it right." She checked her watch. Break time in an hour. Jasmine brought in some of her famous cinnamon rolls. Marcus's smile became more genuine. Wouldn't miss it. As Diane walked away, Marcus returned to his work, methodically cleaning the lobby as the morning rush began to subside. He moved with purpose, taking pride in the gleaming floors that reflected the recessed lighting above. Few of the employees rushing by realized that the same hands that now wrung out a mop had once disarmed explosives and led men through firefights. That the quiet janitor they barely acknowledged had once been responsible for decisions that saved dozens of lives. On the 32nd floor, Alexis and her team settled into the glass-walled conference room, spreading out their presentation materials and opening laptops. The view from this height was spectacular, showcasing Seattle's skyline and the distant waters of Puget Sound, though Alexis barely spared it a glance, focused instead on her reflection in the window as she touched up her lipstick. "So what's the strategy if Ice Queen Montgomery shuts us down again?" asked Megan, one of her colleagues, using their not-so-secret nickname for the CEO. Alexis rolled her eyes. "We go over her head to the board. My father plays golf with two of the directors. They'll make her see reason." She tapped her manicured nails against the polished table. "Besides, Catherine's not even from a tech background. She was some kind of engineer or developer or whatever before this. What does she know about marketing?" The third woman, Taylor, lowered her voice. "I heard she was military before that. Like she built some kind of systems for the Defense Department." "Please." Alexis scoffed. "Catherine Montgomery in the military? Have you seen how she dresses? No way Miss Perfect Pantsuit was ever in fatigues." They laughed, unaware that the room's advanced audio system had already activated for the scheduled meeting, transmitting their conversation to the CEO's office where Catherine Montgomery sat reviewing their previous proposals. Catherine Montgomery, at 47, was indeed a former military software engineer who had revolutionized battlefield communication systems before founding Horizon Innovations. Her company now produced the world's leading emergency response and disaster relief coordination software used by governments and NGOs globally. She sat at her desk, listening to the young women mock her background, her face betraying no emotion except for a slight tightening around her eyes. Back in the lobby, Marcus had finished cleaning up the coffee spill and moved on to polishing the brushed steel directory sign. His movements were efficient, born of years of discipline and attention to detail. He checked his watch, 45 minutes until his break, when he could rest his aching leg. The morning's damp weather, always, made the old injury throb more intensely. A young security guard approached, his expression friendly. "Morning, Mr. Wilson," he said with respect that contrasted sharply with Alexis's dismissal earlier. "Morning, Jamal," Marcus replied. "How's the studying going?" Jamal beamed. "Aced my midterm, just like you said I would. Those study techniques you showed me really worked." "Never doubted you for a second," Marcus said, genuine pride in his voice. "Keep it up, and you'll have that criminal justice degree before you know it." "Thanks to you," Jamal said earnestly. "Still can't believe you're helping me for free." "Those college tutors charge like $50 an hour," Marcus shrugged. "Knowledge should be shared, not sold." He didn't mention that he had once taught tactical strategy to elite units, that the techniques he shared with Jamal were simplified versions of methods he developed for soldiers preparing for complex missions. As Jamal walked away, Marcus's phone vibrated in his pocket. He checked it discreetly, seeing a text message that brought a soft smile to his face, the only genuine one he'd shown all morning. The message was simple. "Still on for lunch?" "Love you, K," he typed back quickly. Wouldn't miss it. "Love you, too." No one watching the quiet janitor texting would have guessed that the K was Catherine Montgomery, CEO of Horizon Innovations and his wife of 7 years. Just as no one seeing him clean floors would imagine that Marcus Wilson had once commanded elite military units or held a master's degree in organizational psychology that gathered dust unused. Their worlds remained separate by mutual choice. Catherine building her company into an industry leader, Marcus finding peace in simple work after years of high-stress military operations. His PTSD and leg injury had made corporate life unappealing, while the purposeful physical labor of maintenance helped calm his mind. Few knew of their connection. They valued their privacy, and Marcus valued his independence, refusing to use his wife's position for special treatment. As Marcus pocketed his phone and returned to work, he thought about lunch with Catherine, the one bright spot in his day. Neither of them could have anticipated how Alexis Blackwood's spilled coffee would soon connect their carefully separated worlds in ways that would change everything at Horizon Innovations. The 32nd floor executive suite of Horizon Innovations hummed with tension as Catherine Montgomery reviewed the marketing team's latest proposal on her tablet. Her steel gray eyes moved methodically across the screen, her expression revealing nothing. At 47, Catherine carried herself with the same disciplined poise she had maintained throughout her military career. Her dark hair, streaked with elegant silver at the temples, was pulled back in a sleek bun that emphasized her sharp cheekbones and clear, analytical gaze. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, simple but impeccably cut, with a small, unobtrusive silver pin on her lapel, the only visible connection to her military past. "Jessica, what's your assessment?" Catherine asked, addressing her chief operations officer without looking up from the screen. Jessica Chun, a former Silicon Valley executive who had joined Horizon 2 years earlier, frowned slightly. "The visuals are impressive, but the substance is lacking. They're still pushing for a more aggressive, luxury-focused brand identity that doesn't align with our core mission." Catherine nodded, setting down the tablet. "My thoughts exactly. The board wants a refreshed image, not a complete identity shift. We're not selling luxury goods. We're providing systems that save lives during crises." She stood, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a panoramic view of Seattle. "Our software helped coordinate the rescue of over 10,000 people during last year's typhoon in the Philippines. That's what Horizon stands for, not whatever glossy facade Ms. Blackwood is proposing." "The board is growing impatient," Jessica reminded her gently. "Blackwood's father has been particularly vocal about modernizing our approach." "Modernizing doesn't mean abandoning our values," Catherine replied, her voice firm but not harsh. She checked her watch, a simple durable timepiece rather than the luxury brands her executives typically wore. I'll meet with them at 11. In the meantime, I need to finish reviewing the disaster response protocol updates for the Indonesia deployment. As Jessica left, Catherine returned to her desk, but instead of opening the Indonesia files, she found herself staring at a small framed photograph, partially hidden behind her computer monitor. It showed her and Marcus on a hiking trail in the Olympic Peninsula, both smiling broadly, the mountains stretching behind them. It had been taken 3 years ago, on a rare weekend when both had managed to completely disconnect from work. Catherine traced the edge of the frame with her fingertip, a small smile softening her usually composed features. Few people at Horizon knew about her marriage to Marcus, not because she was ashamed, far from it, but because both valued their privacy fiercely. Marcus especially had insisted on making his own way, refusing to leverage their relationship for special treatment or advancement. "You built this company from nothing, Kat," he had told her years ago when she offered him a position in security operations. "I need to find my own path, on my own terms." She had understood. After his last deployment and injury, Marcus needed control over his environment, needed work that brought him peace rather than triggering the hypervigilance that still sometimes haunted him. Catherine's intercom buzzed, interrupting her thoughts. "Ms. Montgomery, the maintenance supervisor is here about the lobby renovation plans," her assistant announced. "Send her in," Catherine replied, quickly minimizing the Indonesia files and pulling up the building plans. Diane Chen entered, carrying a thick folder of blueprints. "Good morning, Ms. Montgomery. I've brought the updated estimates for the lobby redesign." As they reviewed the plans, Diane hesitated, then added, "There was an incident in lobby this morning. One of the marketing consultants, Alexis Blackwood, spilled coffee on Marcus. She was quite rude about it." Catherine's expression remained neutral, though Diane noticed a slight tension in her shoulders. "Was anyone hurt?" "No, just some coffee on his uniform." But she didn't apologize, just made some dismissive comment about it being his job to clean up messes. Diane shook her head. "I know it's not my place, but that kind of behavior affects staff morale. Thank you for bringing it to my attention," Catherine said evenly. "I'll address it with the marketing team." She paused, then asked with studied casualness, "Is Marcus all right?" "Oh, you know Marcus," Diane replied with a small smile. "Never complains. He just kept working like nothing happened." Catherine nodded, her eyes momentarily distant. "That sounds like him." She quickly refocused on the blueprints. "Now, about these estimates. Meanwhile, 11 floors below, Marcus had finished his lobby duties and moved to the maintenance room to change into a clean uniform. The small, windowless space was organized with military precision, tools arranged by size and function, cleaning supplies labeled and properly stored. A few personal touches revealed the human behind the organization. A small potted plant thriving despite the lack of natural light, a dog-eared paperback of Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea, and a discreet photo of Catherine pinned inside. His locker door. As he buttoned the fresh uniform, Marcus caught his reflection in the small mirror mounted on the wall. Sometimes he barely recognized himself, the decorated master sergeant now anonymous in navy blue maintenance coveralls. He didn't regret his choices. After 15 years of military service and the trauma of his final deployment, this simple work provided something he desperately needed: routine, order, and most importantly, peace. His phone vibrated again. Another text from Catherine. "Alexis Blackwood, marketing consultant. Coffee incident. You okay?" Marcus smiled slightly, unsurprised that Catherine already knew. Very little happened at Horizon without her knowledge. He texted back, "Fine, just a coffee stain. Don't make it an issue, please." Her response came quickly, "No promises, love you." Marcus shook his head, knowing that look Catherine got when someone crossed a line she considered important, like basic respect for every person in her company, regardless of their position. It was one of the many things he loved about her. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and gathered his cleaning supplies for the next section of his rounds, the executive conference rooms on the 20th floor. As he pushed his cart into the elevator, he found himself sharing the space with 3 young programmers, their conversation animated as they debated some feature of the emergency response system. The problem is latency in high-stress environments, one was saying, gesturing with hands that bore the telltale caffeine tremor of long coding sessions. If the system lags even 3 seconds during triage categorization, it could mean, but the redundant verification protocols are necessary. Another countered. Without them, you risk misclassification in mass casualty scenarios. The third programmer, noticing Marcus, offered an awkward smile, as if embarrassed by their technical discussion in front of maintenance staff. Marcus nodded politely but said nothing, though his mind automatically began analyzing their problem. Before his injury, he had worked extensively with battlefield triage systems, optimizing them for precisely the scenarios they were describing. The elevator stopped at the 20th floor, and Marcus wheeled his cart out, leaving the programmers to their debate. As he moved through the conference rooms, methodically cleaning each one, he overheard fragments of meetings through partially open DOORS discussions of system architecture, market expansion, emergency response protocols in developing nations. Though he never commented, he absorbed everything, his mind still sharp and strategic despite the mundane nature of his current work. In Conference Room C, a group of mid-level managers were struggling with a deployment schedule for the new Southeast Asian initiative. Marcus kept his head down as he emptied waste bins and wiped surfaces, but he couldn't help noticing the flawed approach they were taking to resource allocation, the same mistakes he'd seen young officers make when planning complex operations. The problem is the sequential deployment model, one manager said, frustration evident in his voice. We don't have enough personnel to maintain that timeline. Marcus paused almost imperceptibly before moving to the next trash bin. He could see the solution clearly, a modified parallel deployment with staggered resource allocation, exactly the approach he'd used during a multi-site operation in Kandahar province. But it wasn't his place to speak up. He was just the janitor, invisible to the decision-makers around him. He finished cleaning and quietly left the room, pushing away the familiar feeling of being underutilized, of having valuable knowledge locked away unused. This was the choice he had made, the peace he had sought. Not every skill needed to be employed to have value. As he worked his way through the floor, Marcus's thoughts returned to the morning's incident with Alexis Blackwood. Her dismissive attitude hadn't bothered him personally. He had faced far worse and had the inner security of knowing exactly who he was, regardless of others' perceptions. What troubled him was what it represented, the assumption that someone's job title determined their worth, their right to basic respect. In the military, Marcus had learned that the most junior private could sometimes have the critical insight needed for mission success, that rank and title were poor predictors of character or capability. It was a lesson Catherine had brought to Horizon's corporate culture as well, one of the many values they shared, despite their outwardly different paths. By the time Marcus returned to the maintenance room for his scheduled break, his leg was aching more intensely. He sat down carefully, massaging the damaged muscle and trying to ignore the phantom pain that sometimes radiated from the titanium pins holding his shattered femur together. The injury that had ended his military career still reminded him daily of its presence, especially in damp weather. As he rested, Marcus checked his watch, calculating the time until his lunch with Catherine. These moments together, brief islands in their separate professional worlds, sustained them both through long days. Few people understood their relationship, the decorated military officer turned janitor and the CEO who had built a tech empire. but they recognized in each other a shared core of integrity, discipline, and purpose that transcended titles and societal expectations. Alexis Blackwood strode down the hallway toward Conference Room A, her heels clicking rhythmically against the polished floor, her team following like an entourage. Her confidence had been slightly shaken by a terse email from Catherine Montgomery, moving their meeting to the CEO's private conference room instead of the marketing department's usual space. Still, Alexis maintained her composed facade, mentally rehearsing the arguments she would use to push through her vision for Horizon's rebranding. Remember, if she starts going on about company values again, pivot to market penetration statistics. She instructed Megan and Taylor as they approached the executive floor. The board wants growth, not just feel-good stories about disaster relief. The executive assistant outside Catherine's office, a poised woman in her 50s named Eleanor, looked up as they approached. "Miss Montgomery will see you now," she said. Her tone professional but noticeably cool. She pressed a button to unlock the heavy wooden doors to the conference room. Inside, Catherine sat at the head of a gleaming mahogany table, Jessica Chun at her right hand. Two other executives Alexis didn't recognize were also present, their expressions unreadable. There was none of the usual small talk or offers of coffee that typically preceded these meetings. "Ms. Blackwood, please sit," Catherine said, gesturing to the chairs across from her. "I've reviewed your latest proposal thoroughly." Alexis flashed her practiced smile, setting her portfolio on the table with a confident thud. "I'm excited to walk you through the details. Ms. Montgomery, I think you'll find we've addressed your previous concerns, while still maintaining the luxury positioning that will elevate Horizon's market." "I'll stop you there," Catherine interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "After careful consideration, I've decided that your team's vision for Horizon is fundamentally incompatible with our company's core mission and values." Alexis blinked, her smile faltering. "I'm sorry?" "Your proposal repeatedly positions our emergency response systems as luxury products for elite organizations. That directly contradicts our commitment to making these life-saving tools accessible to all communities, regardless of resources." Catherine tapped on a tablet, bringing up slides from Alexis's own presentation on the wall screen. "You've removed all mention of our sliding scale pricing for developing nations and emphasized exclusivity over accessibility." "That's just marketing language," Alexis countered, recovering quickly. "Premium positioning doesn't mean we can't still offer those programs. It just helps us command higher prices from clients who can afford it." Catherine's expression remained unchanged. Horizon was founded on the principle that everyone deserves access to the best emergency response technology, not just those who can pay premium prices. That's not negotiable. Alexis felt her cheeks warm with frustration. "With all due respect, Miss Montgomery, the board specifically tasked us with modernizing Horizon's image. The current humanitarian angle limits your growth potential. My father and the other directors are concerned that I'm well aware of." "The board's concerns," Catherine cut in, her voice taking on a sharper edge. "But I'm also aware that our humanitarian angle, as you call it, drove a 22% revenue increase last year while expanding our deployment in underserved regions. Our values aren't just moral positions, Ms. Blackwood. They're sound business strategy." "Jessica." Chun slid folders across the table to each member of the marketing team. "We've prepared a brief outlining Horizon's core principles and strategic vision. Any rebranding must work within this framework." Alexis didn't touch the folder, her frustration mounting. This meeting wasn't going as planned. She had assumed her father's influence with the board would give her proposal an easy passage, regardless of the CEO's personal preferences. "Ms. Montgomery, I think you're making a mistake. The luxury tech market is where the real growth. There are plenty of companies serving that market," Catherine replied evenly. "Horizon isn't one of them." We build systems that save lives during disasters, coordinate emergency responses, and help communities recover. That mission attracts both our customers and our talent." She closed her tablet with an air of finality. "You have two options. Realign your proposal with our core values, or we'll need to conclude our engagement with your team." The conference room fell silent. Megan and Taylor looked uncomfortably at their notes, while Alexis struggled to maintain her composure. Being dismissed from such a high-profile contract would damage her reputation, not to mention infuriate her. "Father, we'll revise the proposal," she finally managed, her voice tight. "Good," Catherine said with a curt nod. "I'll expect the new direction by the end of next week." She stood, signaling the meeting's end. "One more thing, Ms. Blackwood. I understand there was an incident in the lobby this morning involving one of our maintenance staff." Alexis frowned, momentarily confused. "The janitor? He was mopping during rush hour and didn't warn me about the wet floor. My coffee spilled." Catherine's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. "His name is Marcus Wilson. He's been with Horizon for 7 years, and he did, in fact, place a caution sign and verbally warn you about the wet floor, according to security footage and witness accounts." Alexis felt a chill at Catherine's tone and the realization that such a minor incident had somehow reached the CEO's attention. It was just spilled coffee. "I don't see why. At Horizon, we treat every team member with respect, regardless of their role," Catherine stated, her voice glacial. "That includes acknowledging when we've made a mistake and apologizing appropriately. I suggest you remember that during your remaining time with us." Without waiting for a response, Catherine exited the conference room, Jessica and the other executives following in her wake, leaving Alexis and her team sitting in stunned silence. "What just happened?" Taylor whispered once the door closed. Alexis sat frozen, humiliation and anger washing over her in equal measure. "She can't talk to me like that," she muttered, gathering her materials with shaking hands. "My father won't stand for this." Meanwhile, 12 floors below, Marcus was finishing his maintenance rounds when his phone vibrated with another text from Catherine. "Meeting ran long. Rain check on lunch? We'll make it up to you tonight." He texted back a quick, "No problem," and redirected his cart toward the cafeteria. The large, modern space on the 15th floor was designed to encourage collaboration, with varied seating arrangements from high communal tables to quiet booths along the windows. Unlike many corporate headquarters where hierarchy was reflected in separate dining facilities, Horizon's cafeteria served everyone from interns to executives, another of Catherine's deliberate choices to foster an egalitarian company culture. Marcus selected a simple lunch sandwich, apple, coffee, and found a quiet corner booth overlooking the rain-slicked streets below. He pulled out his dog-eared copy of Hemingway, losing himself in the familiar prose as he ate. Reading had become his refuge during long hospital stays after his injury, and the habit had stuck, providing a welcome escape from the noise of his own thoughts. He was so absorbed that he didn't immediately notice Jamal approaching with his own lunch tray. "Mind if I join you, Mr. Wilson?" the young security guard asked. Marcus looked up, smiling genuinely as he marked his place in the book. "Not at all, and I've told you, it's just Marcus." Jamal sat, his expression troubled as he arranged his food. "Heard about what happened this morning with that marketing lady. Pretty messed up," Marcus shrugged. "Not worth dwelling on." "Still," Jamal persisted, "the way some people treat maintenance staff just because." He stopped suddenly, his eyes widening as he looked past Marcus toward the cafeteria entrance. Marcus turned to see Catherine entering the space, accompanied by Jessica Chun. It was unusual for the CEO to eat in the main cafeteria. Most of Catherine's lunches were working meetings in her office or business meals at nearby restaurants. Her presence created a subtle ripple of awareness through the room, conversations quieting momentarily, postures straightening as employees noticed their chief executive, Catherine's eyes scanned the cafeteria, pausing when she spotted Marcus. A ghost of a smile touched her lips before her professional mask returned. She nodded almost imperceptibly in his direction before proceeding. To the serving line. "Whoa," Jamal whispered, leaning forward. "Did you see that? The CEO just noticed you." Marcus kept his expression neutral. "She notices everyone. That's why Horizon runs so well." "Yeah, but—" Jamal lowered his voice further, glancing around conspiratorially. "There's a rumor going around that she tore into that Blackwood woman. For how she treated you this morning. Like full-on executive smackdown in the middle of a marketing meeting." Marcus frowned slightly. That doesn't sound like Caveh Ms. Montgomery's style, though privately he wasn't entirely surprised. Catherine's quiet ferocity when it came to matters of principle was something he knew well. "Well, my buddy in IT was setting up equipment next door and said it got pretty intense." Jamal continued, clearly enjoying having insider information. "Apparently she's married, you know, the CEO, I mean. Nobody knows much about her husband, though. Super private. Some people think he's also military, or maybe in intelligence or something. Whoever he is, he's never at company events." Marcus took a careful sip of his coffee, hiding his amusement at being the subject of company speculation. "People should focus more on their work and less on their boss's personal life," he said mildly. Across the cafeteria, Catherine had selected a salad and was speaking with an engineer who had approached her with a question. Her posture was attentive, focused entirely on the conversation, despite the busy environment. Marcus watched her for a moment, admiring the way she made whoever she was speaking with feel like the most important person in the room, a quality that had made her both an exceptional officer and now a respected CEO. "I should get back to work," Marcus said, finishing his sandwich and gathering his trash. "Good luck with that systems security assignment." As he stood, wincing slightly at the stiffness in his leg, he caught Catherine glancing his way again. Their eyes met briefly. Across the crowded space, a moment of connection invisible to everyone around them. In that look was a world of shared understanding, the silent communication of two people who knew each other's true selves beyond the roles they played in public. Marcus nodded slightly and turned away, heading back to his maintenance duties, carrying with him the quiet strength of that momentary connection. For all the worlds that separated them during working hours, they remained anchored to each other, a private reality that sustained them both through the public masks they wore. The afternoon rain intensified, drumming against the windows of Horizon. Innovations and casting the interior in a soft gray light. Marcus worked methodically through the upper floors, replacing light bulbs, fixing a stubborn door hinge, and attending to the 100 small tasks that kept the building functioning smoothly. His mind, however, remained on Catherine and the rumored confrontation with Alexis Blackwood. Though he appreciated his wife's defense, he hoped it wouldn't escalate the situation unnecessarily. On the 25th floor, Marcus knelt by an electrical panel, troubleshooting a circuit breaker issue that had caused intermittent outages in one section of the marketing department. The irony wasn't lost on him, fixing the lights for the very team whose leader had dismissed him so casually that morning. As he worked, voices drifted from the nearby conference room, the door left slightly ajar. "She's completely unreasonable," Alexis's voice, sharp with indignation. "We need to go directly to the board. My father can call an emergency meeting if necessary." "Alexis, maybe we should just revise the proposal as requested," came Taylor's hesitant response. "Horizon is still a major client, and Montgomery does have final approval on. She humiliated me in that meeting," Alexis cut in. "Over a janitor, Taylor, a janitor. Like I'm supposed to apologize to maintenance staff for doing their job." Marcus continued working, his expression unchanged though he listened carefully. Years of military training having taught him to gather intelligence while remaining unobtrusive. "The board hired us to modernize their image," Alexis continued. her voice lowering but still audible. Montgomery's bleeding heart approach is holding the company back. My father says she's too attached to her military background, trying to run a tech company like it's some kind of humanitarian mission. A third voice joined in, Megan's, Marcus thought. I did some digging after the meeting. Montgomery served 10 years in the Army before founding Horizon. Specialized in communication systems for disaster zones. That explains the savior complex, Alexis scoffed. But this is business, not a charity. The board is getting restless with her resistance to proper monetization. And now she's on some crusade about respect for janitors? Marcus finished with the electrical panel, closing it quietly and gathering his tools. He'd heard enough. Catherine's concerns about the marketing team's vision clearly went beyond their treatment of staff. It was a fundamental clash of values about what Horizon should be. He moved down the hallway, his slight limp more pronounced after kneeling for so long. As he rounded the corner, he nearly collided with Alexis and her team, exiting the conference room, folders and tablets in hand. Alexis stopped short, recognition and annoyance flickering across her face. "Were you eavesdropping?" she demanded, eyes narrowing suspiciously. "Just fixing the circuit breaker, ma'am," Marcus replied evenly, gesturing to his toolbox. "This section's been having power issues." Alexis stared at him, clearly trying to decide whether to believe him. Her gaze shifted to his name tag, then to his face, studying him more carefully than she had that morning. Something in his composed demeanor seemed to unsettle her. "You complained to Montgomery about me, didn't you?" she accused suddenly. Marcus shook his head. "No, ma'am, that's not my style." Then how did she know about the coffee incident? Alexis pressed, color rising in her cheeks. "She practically threatened my position over it." "Security cameras in the lobby," Marcus answered. Simply, "and Miss Montgomery notices things. It's what makes her good at her job." He moved a step past them, adding quietly, "Excuse me, I need to check the VECA system before the end of my shift." "Wait," Alexis said, her voice commanding. When Marcus paused, she asked, "You're not just a janitor, are you? The way you carry yourself, you were military?" Marcus regarded her for a moment, weighing his response. "Yes, ma'am. 15 years. Army Special Forces." The revelation seemed to catch Alexis off guard. She blinked, recalibrating her assessment. "Special Forces? And now you single quotes maintenance?" "Now I'm maintenance," Marcus confirmed without elaboration or apology. He nodded politely and continued down the hallway, leaving Alexis staring after him, her expression confused and slightly troubled. As the afternoon wore on, the encounter replayed in Marcus's mind. He wasn't ashamed of his current position. He had chosen this path deliberately after his injury, seeking work that allowed him peace and simplicity after years of high-stress operations. Catherine had understood his choice, even when others in their lives questioned why a decorated veteran with his qualifications would settle for janitorial work. What those people failed to understand was how the rhythmic, physical labor helped quiet his mind, how the straightforward tasks and immediate results provided satisfaction that complex, abstract work couldn't match after his trauma. There was honor in maintaining the spaces where others could do their best work, in creating order from chaos on a small, manageable scale. At 4:30, Marcus's phone vibrated with a text from Catherine. "Meeting running late. Take the car." "Home? I'll grab a ride with Jessica later." He texted back his agreement and finished his final tasks for the day. In the maintenance locker room, he changed out of his uniform into jeans and a simple button-down shirt, said goodbye to Diane and the evening shift staff, and headed for the executive garage. The security guard at the entrance nodded respectfully. "Evening, Mr. Wilson. Mrs. Montgomery said you'd be taking her car." "Thanks, Eric," Marcus replied. Accepting the key fob the guard handed him, he walked to the reserved space where Catherine's sleek charcoal gray Tesla waited. Few at Horizon knew that the CEO's husband, occasionally drove her car home, or that he worked in the same building. Their deliberate separation of professional and personal lives had become second nature over the years. As Marcus settled into the driver's seat, adjusting it to accommodate his taller frame, he caught sight of Alexis Blackwood entering the garage with her team, heading toward a bright red BMW convertible parked in the visitor section. She hadn't noticed him yet. Engrossed in conversation with Megan and Taylor, Marcus started the Tesla, its electric motor humming to life almost silently. As he backed out of the parking space, Alexis looked up, her expression changing to surprise as she recognized him behind the wheel of the CEO's car. He nodded politely as he drove past, leaving her staring after the vehicle in evident confusion. The drive home took Marcus through Seattle's rain-slicked streets to a modest but elegant house in a quiet neighborhood north of the city. The property, set on a small bluff overlooking Puget Sound, surrounded by towering Douglas firs that provided privacy and a buffer against the city's noise. It wasn't the mansion many would expect of a successful tech CEO, but rather a thoughtful space that reflected both Catherine's and Marcus's preferences for simplicity and connection to nature. Marcus parked in the garage and entered through the kitchen, where he was immediately greeted by Max, their 3-year-old German Shepherd. The dog's enthusiastic welcome brought a genuine smile to Marcus's face as he knelt to ruffle the animal's fur, the simple joy of the moment washing away the day's tensions. "Hey buddy, ready for a walk?" Max's excited barking was answer enough. Marcus changed into more comfortable clothes, attached Max's leash, and headed out into the light rain, following their usual trail through the wooded area behind the house. The physical exertion and fresh air helped clear his mind, and Max's uncomplicated happiness was the perfect antidote to corporate politics. By the time they returned home, twilight was settling over Seattle. Marcus toweled off Max, fed him, and then moved to the kitchen to start dinner, a simple ritual he enjoyed. Catherine rarely had time to cook, but Marcus found the process meditative, another way to create order and care for someone he loved. He decided on Catherine's favorite, grilled salmon with roasted vegetables and quinoa. As he prepared the meal, he thought about Alexis Blackwood's reaction to seeing him in the CEO's car. The confusion on her face had been evident, and Marcus wondered how long it would take her to put the pieces together. Part of him hoped she wouldn't. Their privacy was important to both him and Catherine, but another part recognized that a confrontation might be inevitable now. The sound of the front door opening announced Catherine's arrival. Max bounded to greet her, and Marcus heard her laughing as she received the dog's enthusiastic welcome. Moments later, she appeared in the kitchen doorway, still in her work suit but with her hair released from its tight bun, falling in soft waves around her shoulders. "Something smells amazing," she said, crossing to give Marcus a kiss. "Sorry about lunch. You're making it up to me now," he replied with a smile, noting the tension around her eyes despite her warm greeting. "Tough day?" Catherine sighed, removing her suit jacket and draping it over a kitchen chair. "The Blackwood situation is getting complicated. Her father called me directly after our meeting. Apparently she went straight to him with complaints about how I'm sabotaging her vision for the company." Marcus raised an eyebrow as he turned the salmon in the pan. "And the coffee incident?" "Mentioned that too, though she conveniently left out her own behavior." Catherine leaned against the counter, watching him cook. She tried to make it sound like I was being irrational, defending a janitor against a valuable consultant. "You shouldn't have made it an issue, Kat," Marcus said gently. Catherine took the glass of Cabernet Marcus offered her, their fingers brushing in the exchange. "It was already an issue, Marcus. It's not just about you, it's about the culture I've built at Horizon. Everyone deserves respect, regardless of their position." She took a sip of wine, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "Besides, the marketing conflict was inevitable. Alexis Blackwood's vision for Horizon is fundamentally at odds with our mission. Marcus turned back to the stove, flipping the salmon with practiced precision. Gerald Blackwood is on your board. This could get messy. It already is, Catherine admitted, moving to set the table, a simple task she insisted on sharing, even on her most exhausting days. Gerald called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. He's pushing to have the marketing teams. Rebranding proposal implemented immediately, over my objections. Can he do that? Marcus asked, arranging the roasted vegetables on a serving platter. Catherine's expression hardened. Technically, yes. The board can overrule me on strategic decisions. But it would set a dangerous precedent. She placed silverware alongside the elegant ceramic plates, handmade by a local artist they'd discovered at a farmer's market. I founded Horizon because I saw how technology could save lives during disasters. After what we witnessed in Afghanistan... She didn't need to finish. Marcus knew the story, how Catherine had developed a prototype communication system during her military service that coordinated emergency responses after a devastating earthquake, saving hundreds of lives. That experience had become the foundation for Horizon's mission, creating accessible technology that helped communities prepare for and recover from disasters. The Blackwood see $signs, Catherine continued, her voice quiet but intense. They don't understand that our humanitarian focus isn't just idealism, it's what gives us our edge. Our systems work better because they're designed with real human needs in mind, not profit margins. Marcus brought the food to the table, the rich aroma of grilled salmon and herbs filling the kitchen. They sat across from each other in the warm light of their dining room, the rain pattering gently against the windows, creating a cocoon of intimacy around their conversation. I think Alexis saw me leaving in your car today, Marcus said as he served Catherine a portion of salmon. She seemed confused. Catherine paused, her fork midway to her mouth. That complicates things. She considered for a moment. It was bound to happen eventually. 7 years is a good run for keeping our personal lives separate. Are you concerned about how it might affect tomorrow's board meeting? Marcus asked. Catherine took a bite of salmon, closing her eyes briefly in appreciation of the perfect seasoning before responding. I'm more concerned about how it might affect you. You've valued your privacy, your independence at work. Marcus reached across the table to take her hand. I made that choice to protect my own recovery, Kat, not because I'm ashamed of being married to you. If it comes out, we'll handle it. They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, the day's tensions gradually easing in the comfort of their shared space. Max lay at their feet, occasionally raising his head hopefully when a morsel of salmon might find its way to him. Preparing and narrating this type of story took us long efforts and hard work. So if you are enjoying the story, please consider subscribing to our channel. You know, Catherine said, refilling their wine glasses, when I first started Horizon, people told me my background was wrong, that a military software engineer couldn't transition to private sector leadership. Then they said our mission was too narrow, that focusing on emergency response systems would limit our growth. She smiled, the pride evident in her expression. We proved them wrong on both counts. And you'll prove the Blackwoods wrong too, Marcus said with quiet confidence. Catherine's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She glanced at it but didn't move to check the message. Not tonight, she said firmly. Tonight is ours. After dinner, they moved to the living room with their wine. The space was comfortable rather than ostentatious. Plush couches, bookshelves filled with well-read volumes, and large windows that would showcase the sound's beauty in daylight. Now they reflected the room back at them, the rain creating shifting patterns against the glass. Marcus stretched his leg out, massaging the aching muscle around his old injury. Catherine noticed immediately, setting down her wine and moving to sit beside him. Bad today? She asked, her hands gently taking over the massage, knowing exactly where the pain centered. The weather, he explained simply. Barometric pressure drops, titanium pins make themselves known. Catherine worked her fingers methodically along his thigh, finding the knots of tension with practiced ease. It was an intimate ritual they'd developed over years, her way of sharing the burden of his physical pain. Marcus relaxed under her touch, the tightness in his expression easing. "I've been thinking," Catherine said, her voice tentative in a way it rarely was. "Maybe it's time for a change." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "What kind of change?" "For both of us." She continued massaging his leg, her eyes focused on her hands rather than his face. "I've been at Horizon for 12 years now. Built it from nothing to what it is today. Maybe it's time to consider what comes next." Marcus studied her, surprised by the suggestion. "You love Horizon. It's your mission, your purpose." "It is," she acknowledged, "but missions evolve. Purposes shift." She finally looked up, meeting his gaze directly. "The board battle tomorrow, win or lose, it's made me realize something. I don't want to spend the next decade fighting corporate politics when we could be doing something more meaningful together." "What did you have in mind?" Marcus asked, genuinely curious. Catherine had always been the visionary between them. "Remember that veterans rehabilitation program we talked about? Using technology and outdoor experiences to help recovery from PTSD and physical injuries?" Her eyes lit up with the same passion he'd seen when she first described Horizon's mission. "We have the resources now to make it real. To create something that merges both our experiences, both our strengths." Marcus felt a surge of unexpected emotion. The program had been a shared dream they'd discussed late at night, something for someday. The idea of bringing it forward to now stirred both excitement and apprehension. "What about Horizon?" he asked. "I built a strong foundation and an exceptional team," Catherine said. "Jessica is more than ready to step up as CEO. The company doesn't need me the way it once did." She squeezed his hand. "But this new venture would need both of us as equal partners." The prospect hung between them, a new chapter, a shared mission that would unite their professional lives as completely as their personal ones were already joined. Marcus didn't respond immediately, letting the possibility take shape in his mind. "We don't have to decide tonight," Catherine added, reading his thoughtful expression. "But whatever happens at tomorrow's board meeting, I want us to start thinking beyond Horizon." Marcus nodded slowly, pulling her closer to his side. "I like the sound of us in this context," he said, kissing the top of her head. They sat together in comfortable silence. Max curled at their feet, the rain creating a gentle soundtrack to their evening. Whatever storms awaited at tomorrow's board meeting seemed distant and manageable in the warmth of their shared sanctuary and newly voiced future plans. The next morning dawned clear and crisp, the rain having washed away to reveal one of those rare, brilliantly blue Seattle skies. Marcus woke before Catherine, his military habits still dictating his schedule after all these years. He slipped quietly from bed, careful not to disturb her much-needed rest before the crucial board meeting. After a quick shower, he dressed in his maintenance uniform and prepared a simple breakfast: whole grain toast, sliced avocado, and coffee strong enough to fuel Catherine's demanding day. She joined him in the kitchen just as he was pouring the coffee, already dressed in what Marcus privately called her battle suit, a precisely tailored charcoal pantsuit with a deep blue blouse that brought out the steely determination in her eyes. Her hair was once again secured in its professional bun, her only jewelry a pair of simple silver earrings and her wedding band. "You're ready for war," Marcus observed, sliding a mug of coffee across the counter to her. Catherine's smile was tight, but genuine, not war. Just a particularly important negotiation. She accepted the toast he offered, taking a bite before adding, "I spoke with Jessica last night after you fell asleep. She's prepared to back me fully, and she has influence with several board members." They ate in companionable silence for a few minutes, the morning sunlight streaming through the kitchen windows casting everything in a hopeful glow. Max circled, hopefully around them, receiving occasional scraps for his patients. "We'll take separate cars today," Catherine said, checking her watch. "I need to arrive early to prepare, and you shouldn't change your routine." Marcus nodded, understanding the strategy. Until they decided how to handle the potential revelation of their relationship, maintaining normal patterns made sense. "Good luck today," he said, kissing her briefly. "Remember, whatever happens with the board, we have options." Catherine's expression softened momentarily. "Our conversation last night meant a lot to me. The idea of building something new together." She trailed off, then squared her shoulders, her CEO persona sliding back into place. "But first, I need to protect what we've already built. Horizon's mission matters, not just to me, but to the communities we serve." They left home 20 minutes apart, Catherine driving her backup vehicle, a practical Volvo SUV kept in the garage for days when Marcus took the Tesla. The familiar routine of their carefully separated professional lives continued. Perhaps, for the last time at Horizon, Marcus arrived through the service entrance as usual, checking in with the maintenance team and reviewing the day's tasks. Nothing in his demeanor suggested that today might be pivotal for both his wife's company and their personal lives. He methodically began his morning rounds, starting with the lower floors and working his way up through the building. Meanwhile, Catherine strode through the main lobby, acknowledging the security team and early arriving employees with her customary nod. If she noticed the freshly polished floors where yesterday's coffee incident had occurred, her expression gave nothing away. She took the executive elevator directly to the top floor, where Jessica Chen waited outside the boardroom, tablet in hand. "Good morning," Jessica greeted her. "The financial projections you requested are ready. They clearly demonstrate how our humanitarian pricing model has actually increased overall revenue through expanded market reach." Catherine accepted the tablet, scanning the charts with a practiced eye. "Excellent work. Are the board members arriving yet?" "Gerald Blackwood and his allies are already here," Jessica replied, lowering her voice. "They're in the small conference room, and ... She hesitated. "Alexis Blackwood is with them." Catherine's eyebrow raised slightly, the only indication of her surprise. "Interesting. She's not a board member or executive. Her presence is highly irregular. Should I object?" Jessica asked. Catherine considered for a moment. "No, let's see how this plays out." She straightened her suit jacket and moved toward the boardroom. Sometimes it's better to know exactly what you're facing. As the morning progressed, Marcus continued his work throughout the building, though he found himself glancing occasionally at the executive floor indicators on the elevator panel. He knew the board meeting was scheduled for 9:30 a.m., and despite his outward calm, tension coiled in his chest. Catherine had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to have her vision for Horizon undermined by people who didn't understand its core purpose. At 9:25, Marcus was replacing air filters in the ventilation system on the 28th floor when his phone vibrated with a text from Catherine. "Board assembling now. Alexis Blackwood is here with her father. Unusual development." He frowned, typing back, "Keep me posted, you've got this." In the executive boardroom, the atmosphere was charged with unstated tension as board members took their seats around the gleaming table. Gerald Blackwood, a florid-faced man in his 60s, with the overly confident demeanor of someone used to getting his way, sat directly opposite Catherine. Beside him, Alexis perched with a leather portfolio open before her, her expression a mixture of triumph and nervousness. Catherine took her position at the head of the table, arranging her materials with deliberate calm. "Good morning, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to clarify Ms. Blackwood's role in today's meeting, as she is neither a board member nor a Horizon executive." Gerald Blackwood cleared his throat importantly. "I've invited Alexis to present her marketing strategy directly. to the board, given the resistance she's encountered to her innovative approach. I felt it was important for all of us to hear the full vision without filtration. Several board members shifted uncomfortably at the implied criticism of their CEO. Catherine merely nodded, her expression neutral. Of course, transparency is always welcome. Shall we begin with the regular agenda items, or would you prefer to move directly to Ms. Blackwood's presentation? Let's get straight to the point, Gerald insisted. The purpose of this emergency meeting is to address the direction of Horizon's market positioning. My daughter's team has developed a bold new strategy that some, he glanced pointedly at Catherine, seem reluctant to embrace. Catherine nodded to Alexis. Please, proceed with your presentation. Alexis rose, smoothing her designer skirt with slightly trembling hands. Despite her nervousness, she launched confidently into her proposal, outlining a vision for Horizon that emphasized exclusivity, premium pricing, and luxury positioning. As she spoke, sleek graphics appeared on the room's display screens, showing mock-ups of Horizon products rebranded with elite styling and messaging that focused on prestige rather than accessibility. The emergency response market is saturated with utilitarian approaches, Alexis explained, advancing to a slide showing revenue projections. By positioning Horizon as the premium choice, available exclusively to organizations that can afford best-in-class solutions, we can increase profit margins by an estimated 34% within 18 months. Catherine listened without interruption, her face revealing nothing of her thoughts. When Alexis finished and returned to her seat with a satisfied smile, Catherine remained silent for a moment, allowing the presentation to settle in the room. Thank you, Ms. Blackwood, she finally said, her voice measured. Your team has clearly put considerable thought into this approach. She turned to the board members. Before we discuss this further, I'd like to share some additional context that may inform our decision. She nodded to Jessica, who distributed folders to each board member. These contain 3 key documents. First, financial projections comparing our current inclusive pricing model with the exclusive approach Ms. Blackwood proposes. Second, case studies of lives saved through our technology in regions that couldn't afford premium pricing. And third, testimonials from our largest corporate and governmental clients explaining why they chose Horizon over competitors. Catherine stood, commanding the room's attention without raising her voice. Horizon was founded on a simple principle: that life-saving technology should be available to all communities, not just those with the deepest pockets. This isn't just idealism, it's sound business strategy. Our sliding scale pricing model has allowed us to enter markets our competitors can't reach, building global brand loyalty and creating sustainable growth. She advanced to a new slide showing Horizon's growth trajectory. Our revenue has increased by 22% annually for the past 5 years. Our technology is deployed in 64 countries, across economic spectrums. During last year's tsunami in Southeast Asia, our systems coordinated rescue operations that saved an estimated 12,000 lives. Gerald Blackwood shifted impatiently. Nobody's questioning the good work, Catherine. But imagine how much more we could accomplish with increased profit margins. Premium positioning doesn't mean abandoning humanitarian efforts. It means funding them more effectively. With respect, Gerald, that fundamentally misunderstands our business model, Catherine replied. Our inclusive approach isn't a charitable sideline, it's our core competitive advantage. The data in front of you demonstrates this clearly. As the debate continued in the boardroom, Marcus completed his maintenance tasks on the upper floors, his thoughts with Catherine. He checked his phone periodically, but no updates came through, a sign that the meeting was continuing without breaks. Just as he was preparing to descend to the lower levels, the elevator opened, and Alexis Blackwood stepped out, her face flushed with anger, eyes bright with unshed tears. She stopped short when she saw Marcus, recognition and then confusion crossing. Her features. You, she said, her voice unsteady. The janitor, or should I say Mr. Montgomery? Marcus met Alexis's accusatory stare with calm composure, neither confirming nor denying her assertion. Ms. Blackwood, he acknowledged simply, continuing to check the maintenance panel he'd been working on. Don't play dumb, Alexis snapped, her voice tight with humiliation. You're Catherine Montgomery's husband. You were driving her car yesterday. You've been watching me, reporting back to her about the coffee incident. Her cheeks flushed deeper. Was this some kind of test? Some twisted game to see how I'd treat the maintenance staff? Marcus closed the panel carefully, turning to face her fully. No game, Miss Blackwood. I'm the maintenance supervisor for this building. Have been for 7 years. But you're married to the CEO, Alexis pressed, disbelief coloring her tone. Why would you be mopping floors and fixing lights when I could what? Marcus interrupted, his voice still even but with an edge of steel beneath. Use my wife's position for personal gain? Take a cushy executive job I didn't earn. That's not who I am. Alexis stared at him, momentarily speechless. The anger in her expression shifted, revealing confusion and something else, perhaps the first glimmer of self-reflection. I don't understand, she finally said, her voice smaller. Marcus sighed, setting his tools aside. After 15 years in special forces and 3 combat deployments, I wanted peace, Ms. Blackwood. Simple work with tangible results. Catherine understood that. He gestured to the gleaming hallway around them. I find satisfaction in maintaining this building, in creating an environment where people like you can do their best work. But she's using your relationship against me, Alexis protested, though with less conviction than before. She called that emergency board meeting to humiliate me in front of my father. Catherine called no such meeting, Marcus corrected her gently. Your father did, from what I understand. And my wife treats all employees with respect, regardless of their position. That was true long before she met me. Alexis looked away, the reality of the situation slowly dawning on her. The board meeting is a disaster, she admitted, her voice barely audible. My father thought they'd support our vision, but the financial data Catherine presented. She trailed off, shaking her head. Your marketing plan didn't align with Horizon's core mission, Marcus observed, not unkindly. That was the real issue, not the coffee incident. Is that why you're out here? Did she send you to find me? Alexis asked suddenly, suspicion returning to her voice. Marcus shook his head. I'm just doing my job, Ms. Blackwood. Same as every day. He picked up his toolbox. If you'll excuse me, I need to check the VECA system on the next floor. He moved toward the service elevator, but Alexis called after him. Wait. When he paused, she asked, Does everyone know? About you and Catherine? No, Marcus replied. We've kept our relationship separate from work. It's easier that way. Why? Are you ashamed of being a janitor? The question wasn't asked with malice, but genuine curiosity. Marcus smiled slightly. Not at all. But in corporate environments, people make assumptions. They treat you differently when they know you're married. To the boss. I wanted to be judged on my own merits, to do my work without the whispers and special treatment. He studied her thoughtfully. Something tells me you understand wanting to be recognized for your own achievements, not just your father's connections. The comment struck a nerve. Alexis's carefully composed expression faltered, revealing a vulnerability she usually kept hidden. That's not the same thing at all, she insisted, but the protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. Maybe not, Marcus conceded, but worth thinking about. With a polite nod, he stepped into the service elevator, leaving Alexis alone in the hallway with thoughts she'd rather not confront. Meanwhile, in the boardroom, the tide had turned decisively against Gerald Blackwood's proposal. Catherine stood at the head of the table, her quiet confidence commanding the room as she concluded her presentation. The data is clear, she stated, gesturing to the financial projections displayed on the screens. Our inclusive pricing model has consistently outperformed industry standards for growth and stability. The premium positioning strategy would actually reduce our market reach and, ironically, our overall profitability. Gerald Blackwood's face had grown increasingly flushed as the meeting progressed. "This is just manipulation of the numbers," he blustered. "Where's Alexis? She can explain why. Your daughter left the meeting 15 minutes ago." Gerald, one of the other board members, pointed out. After Catherine presented the case studies of disaster response in developing regions, Catherine maintained her professional demeanor, though internally she noted Alexis's departure with concern. The young woman had seemed genuinely shaken by the testimonials from communities saved by Horizon's technology, communities that could never have afforded the premium pricing her marketing plan advocated. "Let's put this to a vote," suggested Regina Chun, the board's most senior member. The proposal to reposition Horizon as a premium, exclusive brand versus maintaining our current inclusive market approach. The vote was decisive, 9-3 in favor of Catherine's vision, with only Gerald and two of his closest allies opposing. As the meeting concluded, board members filtered out, many stopping to express support to Catherine directly. Gerald Blackwood stormed out without a word, his expression thunderous. Jessica approached Catherine as the room emptied. "Congratulations," she said quietly. "Though I doubt this is the end of Gerald's attempts to influence company direction." "No, but it buys us time," Catherine agreed, gathering her materials. "Have you seen where Alexis went?" Her reaction to the testimonials seemed genuine. Jessica shook her head. "Security said she took the elevator to the upper floors, but they lost track after that." Catherine nodded thoughtfully, then checked her phone. "No messages from Marcus yet. I need to make a few calls. Let's reconvene in an hour to discuss next steps." In her office, Catherine closed the door and took a moment to center herself. The victory felt important but incomplete. She hadn't wanted to humiliate Alexis. Despite the young woman's behavior, Catherine recognized something in her, ambition mixed with the desire to prove herself, qualities Catherine had possessed in abundance at that age. She texted Marcus. "Board voted 9-3 in our favor." Gerald furious. Alexis left meeting early, seemed affected by the testimonials. "Have you seen her?" His response came quickly. "Had brief encounter with her on 28. She knows about us. Heading to basement for HVAC check now." Catherine absorbed this new complication. Their private life was likely to become public knowledge soon, a development that would require adjustments for both of them. But first, she needed to address the Alexis situation directly. The marketing team's contract was valuable to Horizon, despite the misalignment in vision. Perhaps there was still a way to salvage the relationship, to help Alexis understand Horizon's mission rather than simply overruling her. With that thought in mind, Catherine left her office, nodding to her assistant. "I'll be back shortly. If anyone needs me, I'm touring the building." Alexis Blackwood stood alone in the empty conference room on the 28th floor, staring out at Seattle's skyline without really seeing it. Her father's angry voice still echoed in her ears from their brief phone conversation after she'd left the board meeting. "You're letting Montgomery manipulate you with sob stories," he'd snapped when she mentioned being moved by the testimonials. "This is business, not a charity fundraiser." But the images from Catherine's presentation wouldn't leave her mind. Children rescued after an earthquake in Nepal. Emergency workers coordinating evacuations during wildfires in Australia, all using Horizon systems. Systems that, under her marketing plan, would have been priced beyond their reach. The door opened behind her, and Alexis turned, expecting to see her father or one of her team members. Instead, Catherine Montgomery stood in the doorway, her expression neither triumphant nor accusatory, but thoughtfully neutral. "May I join you?" Catherine asked simply. Alexis hesitated, then nodded stiffly. "Congratulations on your victory," she said, unable to keep the bitterness entirely from her voice. Catherine moved to stand beside her at the window. It wasn't about winning, Alexis. It was about protecting Horizon's mission. She paused, studying the younger woman's profile. "You're talented. Your marketing concepts are innovative and beautifully executed. They're just not right for this particular company." "I met your husband," Alexis said abruptly, changing the subject. "The janitor, or maintenance supervisor, I guess." If Catherine was surprised by this revelation, she didn't show it. "Marcus," she said, a subtle warmth entering her voice. "What did you think of him?" "I think," Alexis began, then stopped, reconsidering her words. "I think I don't understand either of you. He could have any position he wanted in your company, but he chooses to mop floors and fix light bulbs, and you let him." "I don't let him do anything," Catherine corrected gently. "Marcus makes his own choices. After what he experienced in combat, he finds peace in creating order, in tangible work with immediate results." She turned to face Alexis directly. "Not everyone measures success by the same metrics, Alexis. Position, power, wealth. Those aren't the only ways to evaluate a life well lived." Alexis crossed her arms defensively. "Easy to say when you have all three. I started Horizon in a rented garage with military retirement savings and a prototype emergency communication system," Catherine replied without heat. "The wealth and position came later, and they've never been the point. The point was creating technology that saves lives, as many lives as possible, not just those who can afford. Premium pricing." Marcus nodded slowly, allowing himself to imagine it. A place where veterans could heal on all levels, physical, mental, spiritual. Using technology not for profit, but for genuine rehabilitation. Exactly. And who better to develop it than US, your military background and personal recovery journey, my technical expertise and business experience. Catherine's eyes shone with the same passion that had built Horizon from nothing. "We could make something truly transformative, Marcus." As they discussed preliminary ideas, sketching possibilities on cafe napkins, neither noticed Alexis Blackwood enter the cafe, pause at the sight of them together, then quietly take a seat at the far end of the room. She watched them discreetly, the powerful CEO and the maintenance supervisor, heads bent together over what appeared to be plans or designs, their connection evident in every shared glance and synchronized movement. Alexis had spent the hour since her conversation with Catherine researching both Montgomery and Wilson online. What she found had humbled her deeply. Marcus Wilson wasn't just any veteran. He was a highly decorated Special Forces Master Sergeant who had received the Silver Star for a mission that saved 37 hostages after a serious injury. Ended his military career, he had disappeared from public life, declining interviews and recognition. Catherine Montgomery's story was equally compelling, the brilliant software engineer who had revolutionized battlefield communications, then left the military to found Horizon with the explicit mission of creating accessible emergency response systems for all communities. Unlike many tech CEOs, she avoided the spotlight, focusing on impact rather than personal recognition. Watching them now, this power couple who had chosen purpose over prestige, service over status, Alexis felt a strange mixture of embarrassment and inspiration. Her father's voice still echoed in her mind, insisting that business was about maximizing profit, that success was measured in market share and luxury signifiers. But here was a different model entirely, one where meaningful work and positive impact defined success. She thought about the testimonials from Catherine's presentation, the grateful emergency workers, the saved communities, the transformed disaster responses. For the first time in her career, Alexis found herself questioning whether her marketing expertise could be used for something more significant than selling exclusivity and prestige. As Catherine and Marcus prepared to leave the cafe, gathering their notes and finishing their coffee, Alexis made a decision. She wouldn't approach them now. This was clearly their private time. But tomorrow she would request another meeting with Catherine. Not to argue for her original vision, but to learn more about Horizon's actual mission, to understand what Catherine had built and why it mattered so much. Marcus held Catherine's blazer as she stood, a simple courtesy that spoke of years of partnership. As they moved toward the door, his hand rested lightly at the small of her back, not possessive, but supportive. They moved together with the synchronized rhythm of two people who had built a life of shared purpose, who understood each other's strengths and vulnerabilities. Alexis looked down at her own designer coffee, suddenly seeing her carefully curated image with new eyes. She had spent years crafting a personal brand, built on exclusivity and status, mimicking her father's values and approach. But what had it gotten her? Superficial success and relationships just as shallow. Perhaps it was time to reconsider what really constituted a life well lived, and how her considerable talents might serve something greater than her own advancement. As Catherine and Marcus left the cafe, returning to their separate roles. At Horizon for the afternoon, Alexis began drafting notes for a completely new marketing approach, one that would honor the company's mission rather than trying to transform it. Whether Catherine would give her another chance remained to be seen, but for the first time, Alexis found herself hoping to earn respect rather than simply demand it. 3 months later, Horizon Innovation's lobby had been transformed. Gone were the stark corporate aesthetics, replaced by a warmly lit space featuring a massive interactive wall display showing real-time deployments of Horizon systems around the world. Small dots of light pulsed across a global map, each representing communities protected by early warning systems, emergency response coordination platforms, or disaster recovery technologies. Marcus stood back, supervising as his team put the finishing touches on the new installation. At his direction, they adjusted lighting and checked the interactive features one final time before the official unveiling scheduled for that afternoon. His maintenance uniform had been replaced by casual business attire, khakis, and a button-down shirt, reflecting his recent transition to a new role. "Looks perfect, Mr. Wilson," said Jamal, who had been promoted to security team lead. "Still can't believe all the changes around here." Marcus smiled, clasping the younger man's shoulder. "Change is the only constant, Jamal. Speaking of which, how's that final semester going?" 3 weeks till graduation, Jamal beamed. "Criminal justice degree with honors, just like you said I could do." "Never doubted it for a second," Marcus replied, his pride evident. The elevator doors opened and Alexis Blackwood emerged, carrying the tablet and wearing a considerably more subdued outfit than her previous designer ensembles. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, her heels modest, her entire demeanor transformed from the arrogant consultant who had spilled coffee on Marcus 3 months earlier. "Marcus," she greeted him warmly. "The display looks incredible. Perfect visual representation of Horizon's global impact." "Your design," he acknowledged with a nod. "We just brought it to life." After the board meeting showdown, Alexis had surprised everyone by requesting another chance with a completely revamped approach. Rather than trying to transform Horizon into a luxury brand, she had immersed herself in understanding its mission, interviewing emergency responders, visiting deployment sites, and creating a marketing strategy that amplified rather than obscured the company's core values. "Is Catherine ready for the press conference?" Alexis asked, checking something on her tablet. "Just finishing up some calls upstairs," Marcus replied. "This is a big day for both of you." Alexis nodded, a hint of her old confidence returning, though now tempered with genuine purpose. The rebranding launch coinciding with her transition announcement, the timing is perfect. The media is already gathering in the event space. The Horizon for All rebranding campaign had become Alexis's redemption project. Instead of luxury, positioning, She had developed messaging centered on accessibility, reliability, and global impact. The new tagline, "When Seconds Matter, Trust Horizon," emphasized the life-saving speed and dependability of their systems, rather than exclusivity or prestige. "I should check on the presentation slides one more time," Alexis said, glancing at her watch. "See you upstairs in 20 minutes. After she departed, Marcus took a final look at the lobby installation before heading to the executive floor. The past 3 months had brought sweeping changes to both Horizon and his personal life. Once their relationship became public knowledge, he and Catherine had decided to accelerate their plans. He had stepped away from his maintenance role to become director of the newly formed Horizon Veterans Initiative, while Catherine prepared to transition leadership to Jessica Chundot in Catherine's office. Final preparations for the press conference were underway. She stood by the window in a tailored navy suit, speaking quietly with Jessica as they reviewed transition details. When Marcus entered, both women looked up, and Catherine's professional expression softened into a smile. "Perfect timing," she said. "We were just discussing the Olympic property development timeline." The 50 acres of land near Olympic National Park would become the first Horizon Veterans Rehabilitation Center, combining cutting-edge prosthetics and PTSD treatments with wilderness therapy and community support. The architectural plans, displayed on Catherine's wall screen, showed an elegant, environmentally integrated campus designed to heal both body and spirit. "The construction team confirms we can break ground next month," Jessica reported, handing Marcus a folder of permits and approvals. "The Adaptive Technology Lab will be operational by spring." Marcus reviewed the documents, the reality of their new venture finally taking concrete form. What had begun as a late-night conversation during a moment of crisis had evolved into a fully funded initiative with Horizon's backing and their combined leadership. "Are you ready for this afternoon's announcement?" Catherine asked him privately, as Jessica stepped out to take a call. "Ready as I'll ever be," he replied. "Though I still think you should be the one making the speech." Catherine shook her head. "This project needs your voice, Marcus, your experience, your journey. I'll handle the corporate transition announcement, but the Veterans Initiative, that's yours to introduce to the world." The press conference would mark their first public appearance as a couple, officially revealing not only their marriage, but also their shared vision for helping veterans recover from physical and psychological trauma. After years of carefully separated professional lives, stepping into the spotlight together felt both vulnerable and right. A knock at the door announced Alexis's arrival. 5 minutes until we need to head downstairs," she reminded them. "The media room is full. We've got representatives from every major tech publication, plus several veterans organizations." "We'll be right there," Catherine assured her. When Alexis departed, Catherine turned to Marcus, straightening his tie in a gesture both intimate and supportive. "No matter what happens next," she said quietly, "we built something meaningful here, something that matters." Marcus covered her hand with his own, and we're just getting started. They left the office together, no longer CEO and maintenance supervisor, but equal partners embarking on a new mission. As they rode the elevator down to the press conference, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment, from their first meeting during a military crisis, through their separate professional paths to this new shared purpose. The elevator doors opened to reveal the transformed lobby with its glowing global display, a fitting symbol of Horizon's mission and their own journey. Each point of light represented lives protected, communities served, potential preserved. As they walked toward the media room where their new chapter would be announced to the world, Marcus thought about how far they had come from that rainy morning, when a spilled coffee had set unexpected events in motion. Some might see his years in maintenance as a step down from his military leadership, but Marcus knew better. Every role had its purpose, its dignity, its contribution to the greater good. And sometimes, The most important work happened away from the spotlight, in quiet moments of service, in hands that built rather than commanded, in choices made with integrity rather than ambition. The media room at Horizon Innovations hummed with anticipation as journalists and industry analysts filled the rows of chairs. Cameras were positioned strategically, microphones tested, as the company prepared to make what had been billed as a major leadership and initiative announcement. At the back of the room, Gerald Blackwood stood with arms crossed, his expression sour as he surveyed the gathering. Despite his continued position on the board, his influence had waned significantly following the failed attempt to redirect Horizon's mission. Behind the temporary stage, Catherine reviewed her notes one final time while Marcus paced slowly, mentally rehearsing his portion of the presentation. After 15 years of avoiding public recognition for his military service, stepping into the spotlight felt foreign, almost uncomfortable. Yet the purpose behind it, creating something that could help others navigate the difficult journey he had experienced, made the discomfort worthwhile. Nervous? Catherine asked, glancing up from her tablet. Not about speaking, Marcus replied. More about what comes after. Once this goes public, everything changes. Catherine nodded, understanding the weight of his concern. Their private life had been a sanctuary, a space where titles and expectations fell away. Public recognition would inevitably bring scrutiny. Assumptions, opinions from strangers who knew nothing of their actual journey. We can handle it, she said simply, reaching for his hand. Together, Jessica Cheed approached, tablet in hand. We're ready when you are. Full house out there, and the live stream already has over 2,000 viewers waiting. Catherine squeezed Marcus's hand once before releasing it, stepping back into her CEO role with practiced ease. Let's do this. The lights dimmed slightly as Jessica stepped onto the stage to introduce the program. Her poised presence and clear voice commanded immediate attention as she welcomed the attendees and outlined Horizon's recent achievements, record growth, expanded deployments in 32 countries, and breakthrough innovations in disaster response technology. Today marks a significant evolution for Horizon Innovations, Jessica announced. I'm honored to introduce our founder and CEO, Catherine Montgomery. Applause filled the room as Catherine took the stage, her confident stride and direct gaze projecting the leadership that had built Horizon from a startup into a global force for emergency response technology. She began by highlighting the company's journey, weaving statistical achievements with stories of lives saved and communities protected by their systems. Horizon was founded on a simple premise, Catherine stated, her voice carrying clearly through the room. That technology which can save lives should be accessible to all communities, regardless of resources. That mission has guided every decision, every product, every partnership we've developed. She paused, allowing the words to resonate before continuing. Today, I'm announcing the next phase of that mission, and of my own journey with Horizon. The room grew quieter, journalists leaning forward in anticipation of the expected leadership transition. Catherine outlined her planned shift to an advisory role, with Jessica Chen stepping up as CEO, emphasizing the careful succession planning that had been underway for over a year. Under Jessica's leadership, Horizon will continue its core mission, while expanding into new areas of emergency response and recovery technology, Catherine explained. My focus will shift to launching a new initiative that holds personal significance, one that extends Horizon's mission of accessibility and support to a community that has given so much to our nation. She turned slightly, extending her hand toward the side of the stage. To introduce this initiative, I'd like to welcome the person who inspired it and who will serve as its director, my husband, Marcus Wilson. A murmur rippled through the audience as Marcus walked onto the stage. Few in the room had made the connection between the CEO and the former maintenance supervisor. despite the rumors that had circulated through Horizon in recent months. Cameras flashed as he took his position beside Catherine, the contrast in their appearances striking yet complementary, her corporate polish alongside his more understated, military-influenced bearing. "Thank you, Catherine," Marcus began, his voice carrying the natural authority developed through years of command. "For those who don't know me, until recently, I served as Horizon's maintenance supervisor. Before that, I spent 15 years in Army Special Forces, including 3 combat deployments." He paused, allowing his words to register with the audience. Several journalists were already typing frantically, the unexpected revelation creating an immediate buzz. "My military service ended after an injury in Afghanistan, an IED that left me with a titanium-reinforced femur and months of rehabilitation. The physical recovery, though challenging, was straightforward compared to the invisible wounds many veterans bring home." Marcus spoke without notes, his words measured and authentic as he described the struggles many veterans face: PTSD, reintegration, challenges finding purpose after service. He explained how his own journey had led him to seek meaning in quiet, tangible work, maintaining order, solving concrete problems, creating environments where others could thrive. "Today, Catherine and I are announcing the launch of the Horizon Veterans Initiative," he continued, as the screen behind him displayed architectural renderings of the Olympic Peninsula campus. "A comprehensive program combining advanced prosthetics and PTSD treatments with wilderness therapy and vocational training." As Marcus outlined the initiative's approach, Catherine watched him with quiet pride. His reluctance to step into the spotlight had been balanced by his commitment to helping others find the healing he had struggled to achieve alone. In that moment, seeing him share their vision with clarity and conviction, she felt the rightness of their decision to merge their professional paths. After years of deliberate separation, in the audience, Alexis Blackwood sat transfixed, the story unfolding on stage of purpose over prestige, service over status, had transformed her own professional trajectory. The marketing materials for the Veterans Initiative had become her most meaningful work, forcing her to look beyond superficial messaging to capture authentic impact. Her father might still measure success in profit margins and luxury signifiers, but Alexis had glimpsed something more substantial, a definition of achievement that couldn't be quantified in quarterly reports. 6 months after the press conference, the first buildings of the Horizon Veterans Initiative were taking shape against the backdrop of Olympic National Park's majestic forests. The rehabilitation center's main structure followed the natural contours of the land, its large windows designed to bring the healing power of nature indoors. Construction crews worked steadily through the mild spring weather, the project proceeding ahead of schedule under Marcus's attentive supervision. Catherine walked beside him along the gravel path that would eventually become the center's main walkway, both wearing hard hats and boots as they inspected the progress. Though she still served on Horizon's board in an advisory capacity, most of her energy now focused on this shared vision, creating a space where veterans could find the comprehensive support that Marcus had pieced together for himself through years of trial and error. "The Adaptive Technology Lab is almost ready for equipment installation," Marcus noted, consulting the tablet that contained the project plans. "The prosthetics team from Seattle wants to start setting up next week." Catherine nodded, making a note on her own device. "I'll coordinate with them." The neural interface developers are eager to begin on-site testing as well. They paused at a viewpoint overlooking the entire campus, medical facilities nestled alongside rustic cabins, outdoor training areas adjacent to quiet meditation spaces, all integrated harmoniously with the surrounding wilderness. The design intentionally blurred the lines between cutting-edge technology and natural healing environments, reflecting their belief that recovery required addressing both physical and psychological needs. "Hard to believe how much has changed." "In 6 months," Marcus said, surveying the progress with quiet satisfaction. Catherine smiled, understanding the layers of meaning in his comment. The changes extended far beyond this construction project, their public emergence as a couple. Marcus's transition from behind-the-scenes maintenance to visible leadership, the media attention that had followed their announcement. Yet through it all, they had maintained the core values that had guided them individually and as partners. Jessica called this morning, Catherine mentioned as they continued their inspection. Horizon's deployment in the Philippines exceeded expectations. The early warning system gave communities 3 additional hours to evacuate before the typhoon hit. 3 hours can mean thousands of lives, Marcus observed, pride evident in his voice. Though no longer directly involved in Horizon's operations, he remained deeply invested in its mission. As they rounded the corner toward what would become the community center, they spotted a familiar figure speaking with the construction foreman. Alexis Blackwood, now serving as communications director for the Veterans Initiative. Her transformation over the past 9 months had been perhaps the most surprising outcome of the coffee incident that had set everything in motion. After the rebranding success, Alexis had approached them with an unexpected request to join the Veterans Initiative rather than remain at Horizon's corporate headquarters. She had explained, with newfound humility, that helping tell the stories of veterans and their recovery journeys felt more meaningful than any corporate marketing she had previously done. The media tour is confirmed for next month, Alexis reported. As they approached, we've got commitments from major networks and several veterans publications. They're particularly interested in the integrated approach, how technology and nature work together in the rehabilitation process. Marcus nodded his approval. Just make sure the veterans who've agreed to participate are comfortable with the format. Their privacy comes first. Already handled, Alexis assured him. Her attention to ethical considerations, a marked evolution from her earlier focus on optics and image. We've developed clear boundaries with each participant, and they'll have final approval on any content featuring their stories. As they continued discussing logistics, a construction worker approached, a former Army Ranger who had been among the first veterans hired for the project. Like many on the construction team, he had found purpose in building a place designed for healing those who had walked similar paths. "Mr. Wilson," he called out, "we've got the foundation ready for the memorial garden. Thought you might want to check the alignment before we proceed." The memorial garden had been Marcus's most personal contribution to the design, a quiet space where veterans could honor fallen comrades while finding their own path forward. Every element had been carefully considered to create a place of remembrance that focused on life rather than loss, on continuation rather than ending. As Marcus excused himself to inspect the garden site, Catherine watched him walk away, noting how the subtle limp from his injury seemed less pronounced these days. The work here seemed to be healing something in him too, not erasing the past, but transforming it into something constructive, meaningful, purposeful. In the distance, Seattle's skyline was just visible through the trees, Horizon Innovations headquarters among the gleaming towers. Their journey had come full circle, from the moment coffee splashed across a lobby floor to this new beginning taking shape in the wilderness. 2 paths that had seemed separate had converged into something neither could have created alone. Rich. Girl splashes coffee on janitor, then the CEO hands her a pink slip and says, "She's my wife." The headline that had circulated briefly after their announcement had reduced a complex, human story to a sensationalized moment. But the truth, as always, was richer and more nuanced. It wasn't about humiliation or revenge, but about recognizing authentic value, about finding purpose beyond position, about building something meaningful together. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Veterans Initiative campus as Catherine joined Marcus in the memorial garden. The circular space, with its flowing water feature and native plantings, would soon become a place of reflection and healing for those who visited. The center, Perfect alignment, Marcus said as she approached, satisfaction in his voice. When the sun sets on Memorial Day, it will illuminate the central stone exactly as planned. Catherine slipped her hand into his, both of them taking a moment to absorb the significance of what they had built together. From a chance encounter in a war zone, to separate but parallel paths, to this unified purpose, their journey had never followed an expected route. In the distance, they could see Alexis leading a small group of investors through the nearly completed main building. Her passionate gestures and engaged expression showed how completely she had embraced the mission, finding her authentic voice in service rather than status. "You know," Catherine said, watching the tour, "sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected moments. A spilled coffee, a challenging board meeting." Marcus smiled, squeezing her hand. "Or a maintenance supervisor who refuses to let his wife give him special treatment. Or a CEO who falls in love with a soldier in the middle of a disaster zone." Catherine added. As they stood together in the garden that would soon welcome its first veterans, the contrast between their beginning and this moment wasn't lost on either of them. The journey hadn't been simple or straight, but every turn had led them here, to purpose, to meaning, to creating something that would outlast them both. Life rarely follows the path we expect. Sometimes a moment of embarrassment becomes the catalyst for profound change. Sometimes what looks like a downfall is actually the first step towards something greater. And sometimes, the person mopping the floor has more wisdom, courage, and integrity than anyone else in the room. Our greatest chapters often begin when we least expect them. The question is, are we paying attention when they do? If you've been moved by this story of redemption, purpose, and discovering what truly matters, subscribe to our channel for more journeys that remind us of our shared humanity and the unexpected. Ways our lives can transform, because the next inspiring story is waiting just around the corner.